Before we start modeling, actually I'm blocking out the character, let's do one last check. So here we have the character, the base mesh in ZBrush. We can check the size, geometry. The size is 2 units. Under export is 89. So basically 90 by 2. When exporting to Maya would be 180 centimeters. So let's export and double check in Maya. OBJ out, base mesh under 80 centimeters. Save, replace it. Let's go into Maya, import, and you can see it's the right size. Also, something that we need to check is the position of the feet. So you can see they are correctly placed on the terrain. Another thing that I check usually is the symmetry. We can see that the midline is flush in the center of the 0, grid. Another thing that I like doing is having a grid of 2 meters, so 200 centimeters, and I import this grid as a geometry in ZBrush just to make sure that the feet are in the right place. You can see they are in a good position, because sometimes the grid of ZBrush is not that easy to see. This way I can really check, even though the feet of this character, they will be completely remodeled because they are frog feet, but this gives me really a good start. Another thing that we can do is double check that the size is correct in Marvelous Designer. So we can import OBJ as an avatar. The units are centimeters. The y-axis is up. And we can see that everything is correct. Before starting the blockout process, I want to spend a few more words about this mesh. This is a typical mesh you will be handed in a studio environment. This was provided by Jared Vincent. And as you can see, very clean and even topology. This has also UVs already laid out, which can speed up quite a lot your work. With Shift F, you can see the wireframe. You can see that also you can hide and show very quickly different parts of the body. One thing that you can do to make absolutely sure that this is symmetrical is masking half of the body, going under deformation, and doing a smart resin. You can access this button also in my menu, Ctrl-Alt-A, and smart resin. You can see how much you can speed up your workflow with these little menus. Another thing that I really use a lot is shortcut for brushes. 1 for the move brush, 2 for clay buildup, 3 for the standard, 4 for clay, 5 damp standard, 6 for the pinch, 7 for the polish, 8 for the inflate brush. One last thing you can do is store morph target. This store a morph target of the mesh. So for example, you can sculpt and you decided that this is way too much. You can go back, switching to the previous morph target, or you can use a morph brush, which is M morph G, and you can go back little by little, sculpting and going back to the previous shape. This can be really useful to restore different sculpting stages. Now let's get into the sculpt. Let's import the concept. This can be done under the texture palette using the spotlight. Turn it on and off like that, or using Z for the commands, and Shift Z to turn on and off. So here I can scale it, and I can change the opacity, and then Z to add the commands, and Shift Z to completely hide the concept. Something useful as well is a little plugin called Ref Switcher, where you can save multiple camera positions, and you can jump back and forth between different camera angles. For example, this is for the close-up. And this is for the full figure. I'm starting the blockout process, moving the pivot at 0, checking the concept against the mesh, moving the concept, scaling, and gauging the proportions. This is just to block out the main big shapes. I'm duplicating the character, so I keep another copy just in case I need it. Here I'm shortening the figure. Using the move brush, I'm starting to do big changes to the proportion of the legs, the stomach. I'm hiding the head and deleting the head because I don't need it. I'm checking the body in different angles and starting to use the inflate brush to inflate some areas. So it will be a lot of back and forth between the move brush and the inflate brush. I'm hiding some parts so I can concentrate only on the silhouette and the big masses of the belly. Here I'm increasing a lot the size of the belly and shortening the legs, trying to give also a sort of a fun pear-shaped body, which is part of the design. I won't be attached 100% to the anatomy to make it hyper realistic. This is one of the points of this character. It needs to be kind of fun and slightly stylized. The design is just a guide. I'm not going to do it 100%, but mostly this is really an inspiration. I want to get out a fun character with some fat proportions. I'm increasing a little bit the size of the hands here because they look a little small for the body. There will be quite a lot of back and forth on this. When you do these things like increasing the hands, it's better to have turn on local symmetry. I continue to work on the proportions and check the proportions against the concept. Still the legs are a bit long, but I'm going to work more on that. Here, many times I turn on and off perspective and hide and unhide different parts of the body. And now, for example, I just want to work on the lower part. Reposition it and see how the grid is helping me. It wouldn't be that easy to put the feet on the floor without the geometry in place. This will help me many times during the sculpting process. Here I'm checking the front, checking with dynamic subdivision, just to have a fast preview. It's not really subdividing the mesh, it's just giving me a preview of the mesh. For now, I'm not going to add any subdivision, I just need to work on the lowest level of subdivision until I get good proportions. This can take some time, depends on the level of experience that you have. Once I'm happy with these basic shapes, I can go to the next level and work on the head. Here I'm going to start to block out the head of the frog. I just append a sphere and move it into place. Here I'm actually appending another sphere again because this has a better topology. You can access the menu in the cog when you press W. And here I'm reloading the images with the ref switcher. The ref switcher is much more handy compared to using the regular spotlight, because what happens is when you save with that tool and you reopen it again, let's say the day after, to continue sculpting, you're going to lose the images. If you use the ref switcher, everything is kept in memory and you can load very fast the image reference and the camera positions. So that's one of the reasons why I use the ref switcher instead of the regular spotlight. Here I access again another submenu where I can do remesh by Dynamesh. I found this really handy and I use it really a lot during the process. I'm starting to block the main shapes with the clay brush. The bottom of the head and the eyes, mostly the eye socket. So really working on the biggest shapes, looking at reference, looking also at other references that I have open on the other monitor. I bring again another reference from the mood board. And I start to place immediately some basic spheres for the eyes. This is going to help me a lot to know where the eyes are placed and how big they are. I'm using instances to move and place the eyes. This is extremely handy as you can work on both sides at the same time and only when you like it, commit to it. Now I'm sculpting the eye socket and all the fat part that goes around. Digging inside the head to find the shapes, finding the shape of the mouth. These are, as you can see, these are really basic shapes, really big, created with the clay build-up brush. I move again the eyes. There's going to be a little bit of struggle to find the position of the eyes and the size of the eyes, but I think it's a really good practice to do it as soon as possible, because the eyes are really important in any character that you are making. It's really something that you need to figure out immediately. Looking at the model from different angles, I use the top view a lot. I'm using also Sculptris Pro, which is very useful. I'm going to demonstrate a bit more on Sculptris Pro and Dynamesh in later chapter. Here I'm reassessing some of the proportions of the body. And then again, back on the head. Naming the subtools. I found the organization is very important. Put it in a folder. doing little adjustments to find the good proportions, trying to be faithful to the design. Really, this stage is very important. If you can spend time on it, this is going to repay you later on, because if you don't figure out the basic shapes and the most important proportion right now, will be a problem later on. So spend a bit more time and just really understand and find your primary shapes. It's very important. Otherwise, you're going to struggle quite a lot later. I'm reshaping them out again. Looking from the top view. Checking other images. Of course, if you see the heads of frogs, they are very different. There are many different kinds of frogs and they have different shapes. So I'm trying to stylize it a bit as well, but keep it quite realistic. And as I said before, because it's a fantasy character, there's a lot of creativity involved, which is not true when you work on a realistic human. In this case, there is a lot of freedom. Looking again at the shape of the mouth. Shape of the mouth also, they can convey quite a lot of the character attitude. So I'm sort of thinking and rethinking on this and resizing multiple times the head. Here, look at the top view again. Checking the proportions. I think I'm not so convinced here. I think it's looking too big and too low. I think I got to take a break now and come back later. Yes, I'm back, and the top view is not convincing me for sure. I'm going to look at different references and start to imply some of the forms of the nose, this sort of ridge of the nose, which can be very subtle, almost invisible in some frogs, and much more visible in some other frogs. And I'm trying to see if these can add a bit more character. Starting to add sort of a lobe separation between the right and the left side. It's starting to take shape, but need a lot of work, need much more work. Definitely the area around the eyes is very important. So I'm working a lot on that area. I really suggest to spend as much time as you can working on the eyes, the shape of the eyes, and what's happening around the eyes. Looking again at the proportions here. I'm thinking also about how the head is going to attach to this body, so that is not too short, not too long, and attach in a sort of way that is believable. Here I'm starting to work on the shape of the mouth, first adjusting the eyes, finding the basic shapes and the primary shapes is very important at this stage. Finding the lower part of the jaw. This part could be quite fun, getting this feeling of soft skin. I'm starting to draw with the Dam Standard. It's a brush that I use a lot to carve shapes. and then giving a ridge to the mouth. As I said before, the mouth is a very important area you should spend time on. Can really make or break your character, giving that right or wrong attitude. A little change in the shape of the mouth could give a completely different feeling for this character. Started to carve even more and judging the shapes. Using a bit of the pinch brush and going back to other areas. This is something that I do a lot, jumping back and forth different areas of the character, different parts like the face, the nose, the eyes, and then going to the body. This helps to keep my eyes fresh and continue to have a new point of view on the character. If you focus for too long in one detail, that's going to really slow you down, and jumping back and forth to different areas will keep you going and having a fresh view on it. So here I give more shape to the area around the eyes, starting to find some folds to give more character to this guy. Building up slowly shapes with the clay buildup. Going back to the nose again. Smoothing some of these areas. Finding the nostrils. The first stage is kind of slow sometimes. Especially building with Dynamesh, you're starting from scratch, so you don't have a base. And you will struggle a bit to find the basic shapes, but I really suggest to exercise your skills at building shapes with Dynamesh. It's very similar to working with traditional media, where you build the shapes little by little, adding and removing constantly to find the shapes. Here I'm working from the top view again and creating a sort of a separation between the two hemispheres of the head. Readjusting and having a look again at the full body and how everything is working together. Now I will try to adjust the size of the eyes and trying slightly smaller eyes. Sometimes instead of using layers, as many people do, I just duplicate the tools, and in this way I can check back and forth really fast, and I can understand if this change is going to help me or not. And if this helped me, I just delete the old subtool. I found that this way is much faster and much better compared to having layers, because actually layers slow me down and make also the Z tool quite heavy. So sometimes instead of saving a lot of versions or working in 2, 3, 4 layers, I rather work only in one layer, or most of the time I don't actually use any layer, and I just duplicate the tool so I can judge before and after what is working and what is not working in the new sculpt. Here I'm using a mix of Sculptris Pro and the Dynamesh. This is an amazing tool because you can add and remove details and geometry without having to subdivide more. You just add geometry where you need. So having a smaller brush allows you to subdivide more the mesh and adding detail only in that area. I found that this was a really great addition that they made in the last few versions. Something to be aware of when you're working with Sculptris Pro is try not to go over 1 or 2 million polygons, because tend to crash when you get over that number, so be careful of that. Here I'm doing a last check on the body proportion and the eyes, and I'm trying also to test the body with different materials and the eyes with different materials. This could be quite helpful to see the shape under a different light. So I'm also going to color the eyes darker and giving a toy plastic material so they're a bit shiny and they resemble more the wetness of the eyes. See, I'm trying different materials here. Sometimes this helps you to see shapes that they were invisible before with another material. Here I'm continuing to do more sculpt around the eyes. Basically subtracting, adding, removing, back and forth until I found the good shape. The area of the eyes and around the eyes is extremely important. I'm trying to add more wrinkles, but still just trying to work on primary shapes, not getting too caught into any detail for now. Just giving the extra shape that helped me to figure out if it's working or not, because if it's too simple, I can't really understand if it's working, but we are still in the realm of primary shapes. This is the year. Believe it or not, this is the years of frogs. It's just an extra shape that helped me to understand proportions. Trying to smooth the mouth and the area around the mouth, giving the correct angle. This frog has a quite round nose and sort of roundness around the lips. I'm filling in with the clay brush. Trying to build more shapes on the top and the back of the head, the ear especially, and the back of the head. I'm trying to sort of build up more shapes and giving more character to this guy. The eyes are quite tricky, but I think it's getting there. The first primary shapes are more or less done now. Pretty happy with that. Here I'm sort of trying to break up the main shapes and testing different materials helps to see the forms. Here I'm reworking a little bit of the proportions, the hands. I'm scaling again the hands. They're still too small. So I mask the rest of the body and working with local symmetry and check multiple times to make sure that really the primary forms and the proportion are correct. Now I'm going to mask again the legs and the body actually and shorten the legs just a tiny bit to match more the design. So you can see I'm scaling the legs and then moving down the whole body, and you can see how really that geometry is helping me to make sure that it's touching the floor. I'm checking again with perspective and without perspective. And I think I'm quite happy with the forms and the primary shapes. And I think I'm going to do a turntable. The primary shapes are pretty much there. And there is the first turntable. We can go to the next stage.